requests for my old style of videos. If you've been with me from the beginning, then you know this page started out as like a fully plant-based page. I very much still enjoy fully plant-based meals. I wanted to share with you 3 super simple and very easy but very, very tasty plant-based recipes that are going to satisfy you, especially moving into the colder months. These are perfect. So we've got this really warming shiitake and butter bean one pot. One of my favorite recipes as of late has been this red lentil and corn dal. It is so tasty. Everyone is going to love this. The other recipe that I've got is this tahini and peanut noodle bowl. Cannot go wrong. Of course, go ahead and adapt these recipes, add some animal protein if that's your thing. Let me know in the comments which recipe you will be trying out. The full recipes are written in the description of the video. For more of my recipes, you can check out all of my ebooks, which are over on my website at www.tishwonders.co.uk. Let's jump straight into this first one. Let's go. I'm seeing sweet corn left, right and center. So I had a thought the other day to throw some corn and some roasted tomatoes into the dal, and I was so impressed. This is such a wonderful recipe. Not that dal needs too much to make it delicious. But adding the roasted corn and the roasted tomatoes, next level. I'm using some red lentils. Of course, red lentils don't require any soaking. I've got some sweet corn. If you don't have fresh corn, obviously tinned or jarred corn will work fine. We'll be needing some cherry tomatoes, some coconut milk. I'm also going to throw lots and lots of curry leaves in there too. So we'll start by putting everything to roast that needs to roast. So that includes the corn and the cherry tomatoes. I placed my corn on the cob on some parchment paper and just gave it a little salt and a little drizzle of olive oil, just making sure the olive oil was kind of like rubbed in. And then I wrapped it in the parchment paper and then wrapped it in some foil. I love eating roasted whole garlic cloves, so I added some to a baking tray with some cherry tomatoes, a sprig of thyme, and I gave it some salt and a little bit of olive oil. I placed the tray into the oven. I'll leave the tomatoes in for around 20 minutes and I'll leave the corn in until it's ready to go into the pan. You'll see in a sec. So moving on, I just chopped up an onion. I also chopped up a little bit of garlic, not too much because obviously we've got those whole cloves of garlic going in, but I did want a little bit of garlic just to start building the flavor from the beginning. Seasoned with a little bit of salt and just cooked everything gently until they had softened. It was time to throw in some spice seeds. So in my pestle and mortar, I just crushed up some cumin seeds and some coriander seeds. I placed the seeds into the pan. So along with the crushed cumin and coriander, I threw in some nigella seeds, which are black seeds, and I also threw in some cardamom pods as well. I didn't get it on camera, but I also threw in some chili flakes. Of course, you can use fresh chili if you'd prefer. I then threw in some fresh curry leaves. You can find dried curry leaves quite easily. So yeah, if you don't have the fresh curry leaves, dried will work fine. So whilst everything continues to cook in the pan and the tomatoes and corn are in the oven cooking away, you can go ahead and prepare your red lentils. You want to wash your red lentils really well, cover them with some fresh water. I added in a little bit of salt. I'm really mindful when cooking lentils not to overdo it with the salt, especially if salt is going into the other ingredients. So just add a touch of salt. You can always add more after, and go ahead and throw a little bit of turmeric in. You want to make sure that they are fully cooked before they go into the pan with the other ingredients. So yeah, after about 20 to 25 minutes of cooking the cherry tomatoes, they should look like this. You almost want them to have exploded. They're going to be full of so much flavor. They're almost going to sweeten up. And then with the garlic cloves, those whole garlic cloves in this recipe, and they're softened, and you will know what I'm talking about when you try this recipe. For now, you can keep the corn in the oven, just continue cooking it for like another 20 minutes or so. So combine the onions with the cherry tomatoes and the roasted garlic. Once the red lentils are cooked, you can go ahead and throw them into the pan. So pour in that coconut milk and just give everything a good mix. So remove the corn on the cob if you've put it in the oven. Obviously, if you're using tinned or jarred, just give your sweet corn a rinse. So remove it and cut the kernels off the cob, and then place the corn kernels into the dal, corn and lentils. Oh my goodness, the combination is crazy. Reduce the heat and just let everything cook down for at least 10 minutes or so. So whilst the lentils continue to cook, I went ahead and prepared some white rice. I used some basmati rice. I prepared and chopped up some fresh coriander. I need coriander in this recipe. If you don't like coriander, leave it out. So yeah, after around 10 to 15 minutes or so, you can go ahead and place the fresh coriander in. It's definitely that time of year where dal is just a weekly thing. I love a big container of dal just in my fridge. It's such a wonderful recipe when you just want to batch cook something and have something on hand. So serving this corn coconut dal up, I placed on some rice, followed on by that gorgeous, beautiful, delicious corn and coconut dal, topped with a few leftover slow roasted tomatoes, and I also topped with some coconut yogurt because I just love a little bit of yogurt with my dal. If there's any recipe that you try out this week, it has to be this corn and coconut dal. This will not disappoint. It's such a warming comfort plate of food, and it just brings me so much joy preparing it, eating it. I love this one. This is my shiitake mushroom and butter bean one pot. This is just a classic cozy comfort recipe. It has all the elements of moving into the colder months, and it's packed with flavor. We're going to really layer it up. We'll be needing some butter beans. Ideally, you want a butter bean that tastes great from the get-go. These do not. Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you. They will taste okay eventually once you cook them down, but I would recommend a brand Bold and Bean if you're in the UK, or just a good butter bean. A good tasting butter bean makes all the difference. So we will be needing some mushrooms. I am just using some shiitake mushrooms because they're actually one of my favorite type of mushrooms, but if you're not into shiitakes, you can use whatever mushroom you want. We'll be needing some red wine. Again, if you don't do alcohol, then you can just keep it out. Other ingredients include some plum tomatoes, lots of fresh herbs like rosemary and thyme, some chili flakes, a red pepper, and a couple of carrots. If you have celery, add celery in. I just didn't have any. So we're going to start off by chopping up our onions, and then we're also going to finely chop up all of that garlic as well. So I just chopped up my carrot, I chopped it down the middle, then chopped it again and just kind of chopped it into little pieces like this. I also diced up my red pepper. We want to get all the ingredients quite small for this recipe. So grab a large pan, heating on a low to medium heat, swirl in a little bit of olive oil. We're going to cook the mushrooms to begin with. We're going to do the mushrooms first just so they get maximum flavor. Just give them a lovely golden tint, a nice brown color. Yeah, be patient and just cook your mushrooms. I love to splash in a little tamari. I did add a little bit of salt too. So when the mushrooms start to change color and they just look something like this, then you can just go ahead, remove them, place them in a separate bowl and just set them aside. So back into the pan with all of that flavor from the mushrooms, we're going to throw in our onions and our garlic. Cook for around 3 to 4 minutes, and then place in your chopped diced red peppers and your chopped carrots. Place in some coriander. I threw in some coriander powder, some oregano, some chili flakes, and you can give it a little bit more salt if it needs it. Just continue mixing. So after a couple of minutes, you can go ahead and throw in some tomato paste. Make sure you cook that tomato paste well. And then the next step is to throw in those plum tomatoes. I do love using plum tomatoes for this. To really build maximum flavor, I'm going to pour in a little touch of red wine. Just a little touch is all we need. It really does make all the difference. And I placed in lots of black pepper, a bay leaf, and some rosemary and some thyme. So either opening up your carton of butter beans like I'm doing, or opening up your jar, or opening up your tin, whatever you're doing, just give your butter beans a good rinse. Like I said, these weren't the tastiest butter beans, and I do wish I had used like a Bold and Bean butter bean from the jar, but it is what it is. I placed in the butter beans with some shiitake mushroom. I also placed in a little bit of water. If you want to throw stock in, that's fine. This dish has enough flavor, so a little touch of water was fine for me. Give everything a mix, and you just want to cover and let everything cook for about 15 to 20 minutes, just checking on it occasionally. So you know me, I always have to finish with a fresh herb, and so I finished with lots and lots of fresh parsley, just mixing the parsley in. This dish was divine. Those shiitake mushrooms were my favorite part, so I went ahead and served my shiitake and butter bean one pot with some mashed potato, and I placed on some extra parsley, a good swirl of olive oil, a little bit of extra black pepper, and I dived straight into this. Another warming, comforting, just delicious tasting meal, one that you have to save and one that will be perfect for these colder, darker nights. Yes, this is something that I want to be eating. In my opinion, you just can't go wrong with a stir fry anything. This tahini and peanut noodle bowl, the amount of times that I've cooked this dish or just variations of this dish is insane. I love it so much. So ingredients include tofu. This is the M&S one and my first time trying, and I was really impressed. So we'll be needing some noodles of choice. I'm using these random spelt noodles, but you could use any noodle that you enjoy. We're going to need some tahini. I always say that I love a light runny tahini. It makes all the difference and it's not so bitter. So we'll be needing some maple syrup, some toasted sesame oil, some rice mirin, some peanut butter. We'll be needing some tamari. Vegetables that I'm going to throw in include some spring onions, some red pepper, a courgette. I'm going to throw some carrots in also. starting off by preparing our tahini and peanut sauce. So we're just going to grab a bowl and we're going to place in our tahini, our peanut butter, throw in a touch of sesame oil with some tamari, some rice mirin, and a little touch of maple syrup. Chopped up some fresh chili. If you only have chili flakes, then that will also work. Grated in some fresh ginger, and I squeezed in lots of lime juice. I placed in a touch of water just so I could thin everything out, and I just stirred well until I had my tahini and peanut sauce. So I just set that aside and followed on by chopping up all of the vegetables. So I chopped the courgettes into quite chunky pieces, sliced up the red pepper, chopped up the spring onions, and I just ribboned the carrots with a peeler. So grabbing that block of tofu, this is firm tofu by the way, but it didn't seem so firm, but I actually preferred it like this. Placed it into a large bowl. I don't know if adding salt or any seasoning at this point is what you're supposed to do, but I do it anyways. So I just placed on some salt, some garlic powder, and then I placed on the corn flour and just covered and coated the tofu squares well. I had this large wok, and I get asked about cooking things all the time, so I'll just tell you where this wok is from. It's a Hexclad wok and I absolutely love it. So yeah, I grabbed my wok and I heated it on a medium to high heat. I placed in a little bit of oil and then threw the tofu in. I kept the pan moving, just cooking the tofu until it was crunchy and delicious. And at this point I could eat all of the tofu in the pan, so I had to hold myself back from doing that. So I just set the cooked and crunchy, crispy tofu aside, put the wok back onto the heat, and then threw in the courgettes and the red pepper, seasoned with a little bit of salt, and I just threw some crushed garlic in there as well. These noodles cook super quick, but so does everything in the wok, so I just put my noodles to cook. And then after a minute or so into the wok, I placed in my spring onions, along with those ribboned carrots. I threw in a little bit of tamari and just cooked everything for a couple of minutes. So once the noodles are cooked, I threw them into the pan, and then I grabbed that tahini and peanut, gorgeous, delicious, yummy dressing, threw that all over. And then the last step was to just throw in the tofu. You could have this just on top. You could combine it within the noodles. It's completely up to you. I just served my noodles up, topped it with some furikake. You know, I'm not doing anything or going anywhere without a little bit of furikake. Topped it with some fresh coriander and some fresh chili. Definitely a speedy meal. So there we have it, 3 very wholesome, plant-based vegan recipes for you to try out. Switch up as you like. Let me know how you get on with them. Hoping that this video will spark some inspiration just to try out something in your kitchen this week. Get creative. For more of my recipes, you can head over to my website and check out my ebooks. I will see you all very soon in my next video. Bye.